Walter, good to see you.
Oh, thank you so much. Great to see you as well.
Annika, welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you.
See, who have I missed? Well, of course, my great staff is all here.
Okay, we're live, everybody.
Oh, Larry. Hey, Larry.
Good morning, everyone. Good to be here. Good to see you all.
Morning. I think we probably have, do we have enough? I think we have enough here to start. Yeah.
Yep, we are good to go on the website for public access. So feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
Stephanie, do we have anyone else scheduled to join us?
Ann Valentine will be joining us intermittently throughout the meeting today.
And also Rebecca from the governor's office will be here in and out. I don't think she's able to join us till 9:30 or something. So
why is Chapin still spinning on my screen?
Yeah, same here with screen. It says it's started screen sharing and it's just kind of hanging there.
And the spinning.
Oh. It's not for me.
Oh.
Okay.
All right, Alan.
Are you all ready to get started? And we're recording. Okay. Well, we'll get started, everybody. Welcome to the Indiana Arts Commission quarterly business meeting. It's Friday, December 11th, 2020 at 9 a.m. Under the governor's executive order that allows continuation of the government work during the pandemic, this meeting is being held or coming from 4019 Tanglewood Drive in Floyd's Knob, Indiana, 47119. That's a correction on the agenda, and when we next move after our introductions to the agenda, that'll be one edit that I would like to make. At this time, we will have everybody introduce themselves, and we'll start with the commissioners, then we'll go through staff, and then I'd like, if the visitors would like to, please feel free to introduce yourself as well. I'm Alan Platt, Chair, Region 12, Commissioner. Libby?
Libby Chu, Ogden Dunes, Region 1, Commissioner.
Lisa?
Lisa Abbott, and I'm a new commissioner.
Welcome. Jake?
Jake Oakman, Indianapolis, Commissioner.
Dave?
Dave Heist, Commissioner, Wabash.
Something happened to my screen here, sorry. Let me get back up there. I'm losing track of who I'm talking to. There's Walter. Walter?
Walter Kanabe, Commissioner, Indianapolis.
Welcome. Going to Chad. Chad's here.
Chad Bolser, Commissioner, Richmond.
Greg?
Greg Hall, Commissioner, Indianapolis, Region 7.
Lori?
Lori McRobbie, Commissioner, Bloomington.
Kelsey?
Kelsey Pieper, Commissioner, Indianapolis.
Ruth Ann?
Ruth Ann Calling, Commissioner, Region 12, Jeffersonville.
Thank you. It keeps moving on me, the list, so I want to make sure I don't miss anybody here. Alberta.
Good morning, Alberta Barker, Commissioner, Lafayette.
Okay, did I miss any of our commissioners? I'm sorry, my screen keeps jumping because I'm...
Sophia.
Yes. Oh, there's Sophia. Hey, I see you. Sorry. Thank you.
No problem.
Welcome. You're our new one too.
Yes, that's just going to say, Sophia Soto, I'm a new commissioner. This is my first quarterly meeting.
Thank you for joining us, and sorry about skipping. And I'll have the same problem here potentially with the staff because it keeps rearranging. So if I miss you, just shout out. Lewis
Ricky, Executive Director.
Maya
Michelson, IAC staff.
Paige
Sharp, IAC staff.
Stephanie
Fendler, IAC staff.
Bridget
Eckert, IAC staff.
Anna.
Good morning. I'm Anna Tragasser, IC staff.
Good morning.
Morning.
Stephanie Haynes.
Stephanie Haynes, Indiana Arts Commission staff.
Thank you. Dana.
Morning, Deanna Polsma, ISC staff.
Chapin.
Ben Schnick, ISC staff.
I think I got to the end of my list, and sorry this takes a while, but it's nice to know who all's here. And I want to go back to Dusty has joined. Dusty, you want to introduce yourself, Commissioner?
Hi, this is Dusty Stemmer, Region 1, Chesterton, Indiana.
Welcome. Did I miss any staff?
Paige, Paige? Can't remember.
Is Paige? Oh yeah, Paige. Sorry, are you there?
Oh, you got me. Paige Sharp, ISC staff.
Okay. Yeah, this is like a fire drill of pictures. Okay.
And we got Jasmine now. We got Miss Jasmine.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Jasmine. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Jasmine Behar, ISC staff.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay, and then I do like to welcome our guest, and if you'd like to, please feel free to introduce yourself, Sally. Okay.
Hi, Sally Gaskill. I'm co-chair of Indiana Arts Advocates.
Welcome. Let's see. Terry, hi.
Good morning, everyone. Terry Witt Bailey. I'm the other co-chair of the Legislative Arts Advocacy Council.
So glad you both are here. That's awesome. Anika? Oh, yeah.
Hi, Annika Grismer. I am an intern with Indiana Arts Advocates.
Awesome. Thank you. Larry? Oh, you're on mute. There you are.
Hello, I'm here honored to represent all the regional partners. So
thank you.
I will report later on. Thank you.
Joshua?
Hi, I'm Josh Gilstein, IAC contractor for the ACDMO grant.
Victoria?
Hi, I'm Victoria Hadrick, and I am an intern with Indiana Arts Commission.
Oh, nice. Karen?
Good morning, Karen Gallmills with Indiana University.
Okay, any other guests that I've missed that are on the Zoom call? Okay, thank you all so much for your patience and welcome everybody. It's great to have you here on this pretty Hoosier day. All right, we'll move to the approval of the agenda and September 11, 2020 meeting minutes. As I noted, there is one revision on the agenda, which is the address of the meeting, which I provided initially. Any discussion or edits, concerns about the agenda or the meeting minutes that were provided previously? Hearing none, is there a motion for the acceptance of the agenda and September 11th, 2020 meeting minutes?
Dave Heiss, so moved.
Thanks, Dave. And Jake, was that Jake?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And if you, when you all do a motion or second, if you would say your name first, just so it'll be easier for Stephanie to get that down. Appreciate it. Any discussion, other discussion? Okay, Stephanie, would you take a roll call, please?
Thank you, Alan. Lisa Abbott.
Present.
Thank you. Alberta Barker.
Aye.
Chad Bolser.
Aye.
Libby Chu.
Aye.
Ruth Ann Cowling. I'll come back to you, Ruth Ann. Dave Heist.
Here.
Greg Hull.
Here.
Oh, so we're voting the ayes or nays on the agenda and the minutes.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Greg Hall. Aye.
Yeah.
Greg Hall.
Thank you.
Walter Kanabi.
Aye.
Lori McRobbie.
Aye.
Jake Oakman.
Aye.
Kelsey Pieper.
Aye.
Alan Platt.
Aye.
Sophia Soto.
Aye.
Dusty Stemmer.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll turn to the executive committee and executive director report, the agenda financial, the agency financials. Maya, will you start that for us?
I will. You have the financials in your packet, and we are almost halfway through our fiscal year, which for new commissioners, you may not know, is July 1. So we're rounding the corner of almost being halfway there. And we are on target in all of our budgeted areas. A couple of things I'd point out to you under revenue, you'll see the $10 million CARES Act money, again, which is obviously still pretty new to us. You'll see down below in expenses where those funds have been expended and where we are in that process related to what's been encumbered and out the door, and then what has been committed related to administrative expenses to support that program. You'll also see in expenses under FY21 grant contracts that we're running slightly under what was budgeted. And there will be some grants that were awarded in June that will not be utilized. So there is going to be some remaining funding there from organizations that either are on pause or projects that weren't able to happen or be revised in a way that allowed them to go forward. So just note there's a little bit of extra funding there. And we'll be coming to you with conversation about proposals for that at the March meeting. But that's the one area I think that we're slightly under where we had budgeted for this time in the year. So happy to answer any questions about November.
Yep. Any questions on November 2020 year to date? I'll give you all a second just in case someone needs to get off mute. Nothing? Okay. If none or hearing none, then we do need to approve the November fiscal year. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Actually, there's probably an edit here too, right? No, it says November fiscal year 2021 year to date. We need 2020 there.
Sorry, yeah, it should be 2020 year. Well, no, sorry, that's it's November 2020, but it's fiscal year.
Oh,
2020.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you. That is correct. So then I got it. Yes, thank you. All right, moving back to that, then we're going to need a motion to approve the new November fiscal year 2021 year to date finances.
Dusty, so moved.
Is there a second?
Lori, second.
Okay.
Alan,
I heard Lori. Yes.
If you want to do the next one at the same time, as far as Stephanie only has to do the roll call once on the financials. We could also look at the budget revision, which is simply the addition of that $10 million.
Yeah, sure. So let me hold the motion in the second, and then you all can amend those if you're willing to. So Maya, would you just give an explanation of the fiscal year 2021 budget revision?
Sure, absolutely. And I will blow through this in the interest of time. Because the $10 million CARES money was awarded to us post approving the budget, sorry, multitasking, not good. It isn't reflected in our actuals. So we need to revise our FY21 budget to indicate the CARES Act revenue as well as the expenditures. And so what you have before you is essentially the budget that you had approved back in June with the addition of the $10 million in revenue, as well as the accompanying grants and administrative expenses in the expense line. So fairly straightforward, happy to answer any questions. But again, it just sort of squares up our budget and actuals so that the monthly financials make a little more sense. So
Walter Kanabe, can I ask on the CARES money? I mean, that seems a huge thing, and how's everybody wrapping around that?
Well, actually, that's a great question, Walter. And we are just about done getting all that funding out the door. And so you're going to hear quite a bit more in the later part of the meeting about who received the funds and the impact and sort of where we are. So Louis can sort of tee that up when we get to that point, but it came to us really fast, and we put the pedal to the metal and got the money out really quickly. Because if you're familiar at all with the CARES Act funding, it it is for expenses that end on December 30th of this year. So it needed to do what it needed to do. It needed to be implemented quickly and be sent out the door expeditiously. And again, Lewis will talk more about that, but the staff has stepped up and done amazing work there. So more to come on that. So
thank you so much. And you're absolutely right. Amazing work. It's that's really impressive.
Yeah. Well, we heard from our colleagues in Iowa who just found out last week that I can't remember how much they've got, but they have like 3 weeks to get multi-million dollars out the door. So I'm thankful to Governor Holcomb for giving us a little longer runway to get it done, but we appreciate what the governor's office did in allowing us to help support the arts sector through these funds.
Absolutely. So Dusty and Lori, would you agree to have your motion and second amended to include the fiscal year 2021 budget revision?
Dusty, yes.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. Stephanie, then would you take a roll call on approving both the November fiscal year 2021 year to date and fiscal year 2021 budget revision?
Yes, thank you, Alan. Lisa?
Aye.
Alberta?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Walter?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
Kelsey?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Sophia? Dusty?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll turn now to fiscal year 22-23 budget development and directives. Maya and Lewis, whoever wants to take this.
Yeah, I guess
first.
I'll go ahead. I have maybe a little, not much of an update, but of course, you know from the last commission meeting that the governor's office requested all agencies to submit budgets to his office based on 15% reduction in our current appropriation. So you know that we are operating under a 15% reserve currently. So they asked us to submit numbers as far as the governor's starting point recommendation to the legislature for appropriation for agencies at 15% less. Of course, that's based on the assumption and the anticipation that tax revenues are going to be substantially down. Yesterday, I attended an agency head meeting, and the head of budget made a really brief presentation, but enough to say that that the current numbers that they're using to project out to the next fiscal year, anticipated tax revenue, are not really based in much anything of substance. As you can imagine, it's really hard for them to ascertain where the economy exactly is. They have, there's some deferred revenue because of the when people could pay taxes and all sorts of things that go into that equation, and really not knowing still how long the pandemic type of situation in the economy is going to last. It makes it very uncertain. So they have basically said that, as far as the numbers that they will actually use really to craft the budget for the upcoming fiscal year, those numbers probably won't be projection numbers until sometime in April, which is very close to the end of the session. So that really means that adjustments to what has been kind of proposed by the governor currently will probably not be considered in a material fashion until at least the beginning of April, when they have other revenue numbers. So there are revenue numbers that are coming out here in December. Those would normally be the ones that they would sort of kick off the session as far as framing how to take the governor's budget and work with it. Those numbers are, at least from the governor's office perspective, they don't have a lot of confidence in those projection numbers that will come out in December. And I assume the legislature will feel similarly about that, which just means that, you know, the state budget will be crafted at the 11th hour in reality. It kind of normally is to some degree anyhow, but at least the framework is sort of laid down prior to that 11th hour. And now the framework will appear at the 11th hour when it's time really to do the final adjustments. The final adjustments might be more major, whatever those numbers will dictate. So that's kind of where that is. However, we are still operating under the same memo that was distributed to us as agencies for this year, which stipulates a lot of cost-saving measures, which continue into next fiscal year as well, and also include no new programs and possible consolidation of programs. Now, when we dealt with this year and the 15% reduction, we did those things. We put programs on pause, so and we didn't introduce new programs, et cetera. So we're already compliant with that part of things. So I don't anticipate that the governor's office is going to ask us to do more of that type of work. So, but it will continue obviously into the next year. So that's kind of the framework for things. A lot of uncertainty, but you would expect as much in the situation that we occupy.
Sure. Any questions on that for anyone? Okay. Yeah, and Liz, I think your explanation of how challenging it is right now for the state to put together a budget with all those pieces still in play is really rings true. So just like it does for many businesses. So I appreciate you sharing that. You want to go ahead and cover the office of the governor?
Sure. We of course welcome our new appointees, and it's great to have you with us and on board, and we're thrilled. We do have in the upcoming year only one vacancy that will come, and that's Alan, actually, slated to finish his 8th year. Can you believe that, Alan? At the end of June. And again, Alan may very well be with us for longer, because many times the governor's office has a pretty heavy lift with appointments in the state. There are some 3,000 some odd appointed positions on various councils and commissions, et cetera. And so we don't always get in the queue immediately for that. We are endeavoring to get more diversity on the commission. We've been working with the governor's office towards that end. And in a moment here, there's a new diversity and equity officer coming on board, which I think will be a help in us identifying potential commissioners that would represent diversity for our commission, and would be people that the governor would recommend and support. So anyhow, I'm excited about that. So I think that's the only appointment update I have. I'll go ahead and do the other pieces.
Yeah, please.
Of course, as Walter was asking, we are in the throes of administering the funds, $10 million that was designated by the Office of the Governor for the arts and cultural sector, as well as destination marketing organizations. So we put together a team between the Lieutenant Governor's office, where the destination marketing organization our tourism department is destination development. And we did this together, and we put together a program that allowed CARES funding applicants from the arts and cultural sector, from arts and cultural, those that are arts and cultural organizations or providers, as well as destination marketing organizations in the state. There's one of those in all of the 92 counties, as well as local municipalities that might have arts assets under their umbrella. And also all festivals in our state. And these are not all arts festivals. Some of them are cultural or agricultural or other things. They're usually some sort of hybrid of focal points. We had, and Deanna is going to do a bit deeper dive into some of the numbers later for us. But we awarded 477 grants. They range from about $800, I think, to $50,000 plus dollars. It was a formula-driven awarding. You had to qualify, and then the formula was based on your budget or portion of your budget that was arts and cultural related, or DMO related. Plus the consideration for how much previous CARES money you had received from other programs like PPP, or we gave out small grants, you remember, from the National Endowment for the Arts, etc., as well as qualifying expenses. We also put a geographic lens on it to make sure that the money was distributed throughout the state. And actually, given the grantee pool, we didn't really have to put much of a lens on it, because we did get applicants from all over the state, all size organizations, etc., which was really the intent of the governor. He wanted our cultural assets to make it through this, and he wanted that definition to be as broad as possible and to include the smallest as well as the largest organizations in our state. So we were probably one of, I would say, maybe a dozen states in the nation that have had the privilege of awarding some of this money that came to the state in a more unrestricted way and could be purposed by the governors of those states. Here in the Midwest, Ohio and Wisconsin, North Dakota, and Iowa are the states that, as a matter of fact, we have more than our share of the dozen or so here just in the Midwest. And then there's just a few other states around the country that did this: Massachusetts, Oregon, Rhode Island, just a few states. So anyhow, so we feel really great about it. And of that, again, I'll let Deanna speak to some of the deeper numbers a little bit later. Right now, those monies have hit all the grantees' accounts, with the exception of a very little trailing money at the end that we needed to adjust some of the contracts to expend fully. So my thanks to Jody Golden and Elaine Beadle from the Lieutenant Governor's Office. Elaine is in charge of destination development. Jody is the Chief of Staff for the Lieutenant Governor. Really just a lot of great work by a group of people coming together, and as Maya said, an expedient fashion and figuring it out. We were told this by the governor, and we had a program in about 8 days, which is pretty stellar. So anyhow, especially I want to thank Deanna and Chapin, who processed all the pieces and parts of this, as far as all the hoops that grantees have to go through, and contract flow and approvals and all of that. So and also Joshua, who's with us. Joshua did he just jump off? He was down there.
Back.
And Joshua, who we contracted with, he's a graduate student here in SPIA. And there's Joshua, who is doing a lot of the detail work on this and following up with grantees. As you can imagine, 477 grantees, all of who have to document how these expenses are made for an eventual audit of the state for these federal monies is just a big lift. So we're really happy to have Joshua with us as well, doing great work on our behalf. So that's my little, did I miss anything, guys, that I should let them know before we do Deanna's deeper dive later on?
I would just indicate, tell commissioners that you can actually go to our website and see all 477 organizations. So if you're curious about who got the funds, you can see it there, and it's quite a list. So I would encourage you to go to the website, go to our website and take a look. That's will give you a full picture of how many organizations we touched.
A note on that too, it will be updated here coming soon. As Lewis mentioned, there's the additional funds. We had to amend some contracts because some grantees couldn't accept their full award amount. And so additional funds were granted out, and that's what we're in the process of. So that list will be updated to reflect the additional monies that have gone out to grantees.
Great, thank you.
The other point from the governor's office is that, as many of you know, there's been an announcement of Cara Herring as Indiana's new Chief Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunity Officer. She comes to the state in February from the University of Notre Dame, where she was their Chief Equity Officer. And so this does impact, as you know, we've been doing our equity work. We're going to have a presentation by Jamal Smith, who did our focus groups in communities of color. We have some initial plans for a cultural equity advisory group for the commission, etc. The Office of the Governor has asked us to basically work with Cara and to kind of hold up until she gets into office here in February. As a matter of fact, really there are many agencies that are starting to develop some equity strategies, some of which want their own equity officers, et cetera, et cetera. The Office of the Governor wants Cara to umbrella all of that and make it make sense in the largest sense for the state, with some consistencies and strategies that everyone can apply in all agencies. So that just changes our timeline just a little, by a few months maybe. But I'm excited to have that support and focus from the governor's office. And I think ultimately it'll allow us to be much more effective in the strategies that we employ down the line. So I'm really happy about that. So that's my
Alex?
Office of the Governor. Yeah, thank you, Lewis. And just to go back to the heavy lift that was discussed related to the CARES money, the difference that makes to the arts and culture organizations and artists and our communities and even the economy, what you all have done is really miraculous given the timing and what has been delivered. So I know we can't give a round of applause, but we can give a visual round of applause for our staff, especially Deanna and Chapin, and Joshua for their work. So if you'll join me, let's thank them. I hope there's clapping, jazz hands. Okay. Anyway, very theatery, jazz hands. All right, we'll move on to personnel. Work from home policy. Who's going to introduce that or walk us through that?
I'll do that. Obviously, the work environment in state government has changed drastically since the beginning of the pandemic, and in reflection of that, state personnel has directed all agencies to develop a remote work policy, and that is what you have in your packet. And that is essentially a policy for every agency, and obviously in this case, our agency, that states how remote work will be assigned, how it will be evaluated, and how it will be implemented from the agency standpoint. And I won't go through all the points of it. You're certainly welcome to read it and pose questions. But this, again, provides us as an agency the flexibility to assign staff as being entirely remote, entirely in office, or some hybrid of the two. And that, I think, going forward will be a great tool for us in recruitment and retention of staff, and also, I think, reflecting how work is moving, has been moving pre-pandemic, and certainly will be moving post-pandemic. So for now, just so that you know, all staff have been categorized as hybrid, which means the ability to remote work, but then also the necessity to come in when it's required as part of their work responsibilities. And we are still operating under a sort of a cautious go into the office schedule as directed by the governor's office. So there are just a few of us that come in from time to time. And obviously once the situation on the ground changes, we will be formalizing who's in the office and who's working remotely as things change. But this is our policy. It is pending approval by state personnel. If you approve it today, and assuming state personnel approves it, it will be our remote work policy going forward. If for some reason they ask for revisions, we will bring revisions back to you for the March meeting. But pending your approval, this will be our remote work policy going forward. So happy to answer any questions.
I should also point out that according to the governor's office, conversations with our liaison, that currently, they are eventually trying to encourage some amount of on-site work, even from hybrid employees. And of course, we've accommodated that in the policy, but that the situation of how we're currently working, which is largely remotely, it will not, there is no impetus by the governor's office to change that for anyone until, we have a widely administered vaccine. So the governor's office, any impetus towards trying to bring people back to the government center is really, there is none at the moment, and will not be until they know assess the situation down the line here when we have a more ubiquitous solution to the situation at hand. So,
okay. Any questions on the work from home policy?
Yeah, just one quick question. This is Chad. Is anyone keeping track of the amount of or the number of folks, the frequency of folks coming into the office, not necessarily because of right now, but as the future unfolds, it might be good to have some data about what was effective and what wasn't, and how much the office is actually necessary. So just a question on that.
Yeah, great question, Chad. And I think that's certainly one of the things that we as a staff are talking about going forward. Clearly, there are times and ways that we are truly very effective as a staff working remotely. And there are times when, frankly, coming together, we need to come together, or teams of people need to come together. And so part of this remote work policy and part of transitioning back to some in-office work will be the consideration of what are the work arrangements that allow us to be the most productive, and obviously bringing people safely, and that goes without saying. But yeah, I mean, I think that'll be an important consideration in thinking about this going forward. And I cannot tell you how groundbreaking it is for state personnel to have moved from where we were previously to even talking about this. It's really, it's been a sort of a breathtaking shift and recognition of how how staff best work. So we are really pleased and excited that state personnel is making this leap and allowing us to talk about work environment in a way that we haven't been able to before. So
thank you.
exciting times.
Yeah.
Lisa Abbott, I have a question too. Just from sort of an inclusion standpoint, is there flexibility within the policy? I was looking at the bullet point about dependent care arrangements and that kind of thing. And just within the context of the pandemic, you know, when schools close and that kind of thing, it's extremely difficult for working parents, especially single parents. Is there flexibility there, or is there any wording to be included to just indicate that we acknowledge the difficulty of this? I think that's really important from an inclusion standpoint.
I could not agree with you more, Lisa. And I would say that this is language that state personnel is asking us to put in the policy. So
excellent.
Yeah. So that is the tight wire we walk in putting these policies together. Now, I will say that obviously agencies have a great deal of discretion in how we work with staff, and so again, that I think we look at the reality of what we have to say in our policy and how it gets implemented, and so we have a great deal of discretion in working with staff related to that. So it's been our position as an agency to provide a good deal of grace, recognizing that people are in extraordinary circumstances, and anybody with small children are in extraordinary circumstances no matter what's going on. So being able to provide some grace and support there, I think, is really important. So we couple that needing to state what the policy is and then how it works in implementation as you know, complementary, but being flexible. Really priding ourselves on being flexible. So a great question.
Great. So excited to hear about that. And I think the wording is important just so that it's clear what the stance is and not left up, you know, to the individual supervisor or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's excellent. Thanks for providing that insight.
Also, I have to say that, you know, we've been told multiple times here that as far as an agency that has been as effective as it ever was in a new environment, that we're kind of the poster child in state government. That we've been told that again and again, that, you know, we made that transition much more smoothly and completely and effectively than really anybody else. So I do think that the way that we have approached it, Lisa, in being extremely flexible with people, and that has not, and the effectiveness of what that has been for our work has not gone unnoticed by state personnel, governor's office, et cetera. So
that's fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other questions or comments on the work from home policy? If not, this is an action item. We'll need acceptance of it as presented. Is there a motion?
Lori, so moved.
Thank you, Lori. Is there a second?
Ruthann, second.
Okay, Ruthann, a second. Is there any further discussion?
I'll just add kudos to all of you and kudos to the staff for keeping things going. I think it's not a small thing that you're an exemplar for the state.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Great point. Okay, with that, Stephanie, will you take a roll call?
Thank you, Alan. Lisa?
Aye.
Alberta?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Ruthann?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Aye.
Walter? Lori?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
Kelsey?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Sophia? And Dusty?
Aye.
And
Thank you.
Sophia, I
Motion
think we're-
carries.
Yeah. Sophia, I think we're missing your audio and it's coming
Oh.
on and going off. Just a note there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, staff and executive director review.
So we are rolling up to that time of year when we do staff reviews. It's all a little bit different this time. We have adapted, the state has adapted a more ongoing online system of goal setting and evaluation, et cetera, et cetera. So the old model where people were reviewed once a year and that was it is no longer in effect. So right now, although there is a review once a year, that is coming up now. We're in a window now when staff can do a self-assessment, which is great. And then managerial reviews are then due right after the turn of the calendar year. It is unclear, certainly if there's going to be pay for performance increases or whatever for this upcoming year, given the budget situation. So that is for the staff as well. For me, I'm at the same place, and we've, as an agency, have dealt with this between you and the governor's office, have dealt with this in a dual approach. And in years past, the commission has reviewed me, and then the governor's office reviews me as well. Those two things do not intersect in any way, except that I provide your evaluation to the governor's office, and then they evaluate me. And some years they've taken that into consideration, and some years they have not. So and that's their discretion. So I guess Alan, you would be the person who would be orchestrating any review that would be done by for the commission.
Yep.
And then my review with the governor's office will be in February. At the same time, I will also present to the governor's office our proposed goals as an agency for the year. That's a little wonky because staff goals are due to be set, at least initially, by the end of the year here. And they should flow from obviously agency goals, but I won't have the agency goals approved by the governor's office until February. So that makes a little strange window there, but we're gonna go ahead and set goals assuming that the goals of the agency are acceptable to the governor's office. And we'll, as I said, this is a dynamic system, so we can always adjust staff goals if the governor's office wants to weigh in on some of our agency goals for this upcoming year. So that's where that is at.
Yeah, and the survey for the review of executive directors should come out this month, and I'll be sending that to you also. Be looking for that, and I'll give you some time to get that back, but hopefully we can turn those around maybe in a week or so. So more to come on that. So new intern and contract staff additions.
So you've met Joshua, and but we also have with us Victoria Hadrick. Victoria, I think you're on, right? And she is a Butler student, an undergraduate student at Butler, and she's going to be working with our communications and program staff. And then of course, I'll let maybe Sally introduce Annika, who's working for the advocates in she's not our staff, but she's their staff. And we have one more Butler work study student who's going to be joining us shortly. And I don't have him on here because this just happened.
Yeah, so two things I want to say. Number one, Josh is a SPIA grad, so he is now in the job market. So if you're looking for a top-notch project program manager, Josh is your guy. So we can get you in touch with him. So we can't thank Josh enough for stepping in and helping us with the ACDMO program. And yeah, we just confirmed that we have an additional Butler student, Cody Estep, who will be joining us in January. Cody will be working with Stephanie Haynes primarily on Poetry Out Loud, and then working with programs. And so a big shout out to Butler. both Victoria and Cody are arts administration students. So a shout out to Butler. Butler is supporting their work with us at the agency. And so we are really grateful to Butler for doing that and providing us the opportunity to have these two great students provide some real great assistance to us going forward. So as you may know, our budget restrictions are precluded us from having a governor's summer intern this past summer. And so it's great to have the opportunity to bring young, smart energy into the agency and have them work with us. So we're really thankful and grateful to Butler, and so glad to have Victoria and soon Cody working with us.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see, next item is the, where are we? I've been rolling around. There we go. Grant data and meaning, make a note. I'm ahead of myself there. So it's fiscal year, sorry. We're going to go ahead and move on to the fiscal year 2022 grant guideline revisions.
Right. And so I'll just give a little overview and then let Paige take it from there. And hopefully maybe we could consider the changes to both the AOS, Arts Organization Support Grants, and the Arts Project at the same time, unless you think you need to vote on them separately. Of course, we're in a very unique situation here with the COVID world and how that has impacted arts organizations and their ability to actually provide their traditional services and to relate to communities in traditional ways they've done. So after a lot of discussion, both with staff and with colleagues around the country, we proposed sort of a major change to the operational grants for this next biennial cycle. And the crux of it is that, you know, we have panels evaluate these public outcomes that we look for from these grantees that are the public value that go back to every citizen. And traditionally, these have been in the areas of things like access, education, community engagement and involvement, artistic product, et cetera, management of the organization, et cetera. We decided that in this particular situation, which is very unique, the most important public outcome that we should be supporting is the continuation of these organizations. Obviously, there are many factors depending on what the art form is and what the situation is of what can and can't be done, how it could be adapted to other situations, could go forward or not, et cetera. So the guidelines, so that's the one public benefit bucket is simply that they will continue to exist and they're worth investing in. They're acting responsibly as organizations towards a view to continue at some point in time and to be able to provide those other outcomes at some point in time. The other bucket, of course, is we still wanted to reward our imperatives as a agency which revolve around idea work, inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. So that whole access issue, as well as community engagement. And some, obviously, organizations are doing some really fabulous work in continuing to engage their communities, continuing to serve underserved populations, et cetera. So the major bucket that we are awarding and rewarding is responsible stewardship of the organization with a view towards continuing and reopening. And then there is a small amount of a reward for exemplary engagement and access by organizations. And this is sort of the parameters of the operational grants. We also are only letting new applicants in at the AOS 1 level. We have a 1, 2, and 3 level. 1 is for small organizations, generally small budgets below $250,000 and largely volunteer organizations. We have AOS2 organizations, which are above $250,000 and have some amount of professional staff. And then we have AOS3 organizations, which are the bigger multi-regional organizations that have missions that are either statewide or regional and have budgets above $1 million. Everybody is getting awarded if they're returning based on last year's position. So we're not putting people up or down because budgets are very difficult to evaluate at this juncture. And if someone comes new, a new organization that has not been, is not a current AOS organization, it's coming in at the bottom level. This is also responding to a bit of reality. When we gave out these $10 million of grants to arts organizations and cultural organizations in the state, lo and behold, we unearthed a bunch of arts organizations that could very well be applying to us for operational funds that we had never, we didn't know before. I suppose $10 million brings people out of the woodwork, and but now they know us, right? And now they know that there are also other funding possibilities associated with us. So to manage the budget situation we're in, along with the really inability to evaluate budgets in general, we're just bringing all new organizations into the bottom level. So that's the parameter page. Fill in my gaps.
Well, I think really just the gaps are moving into a little bit more of the granular level of the guidelines themselves. I mean, we've just adapted the program really to reflect the reality that we're in. Streamlining the application will be a key component. Streamlining the panel process will be a key component as well. And recognizing that there's some pretty powerful work that is being done by organizations out there, and that should be recognized and highlighted in some way. So I think that certainly you all have a copy of the guidelines and have had opportunity to read them through. Mostly I'd be concerned about if you have any questions and would like a little bit more information so you can feel comfortable in moving forward in this process.
Yeah, good. And that's a good segue. Are there any questions, concerns about the revisions as described and as shown in the packet material we got? Yeah, thanks for putting that up.
So Alan, if we can also tell you kind of the more minor revisions in the arts project support grants. These are grants that are available to organizations for projects. These would be both very small arts organizations usually, as well as arts providers, people that are organizations that provide arts opportunities, projects, but are not themselves arts organizations. And so Paige, you wanna, these are more minor revisions.
Yeah, so one of the things that we recognize certainly as a result of the pandemic is one of the most vulnerable in the state and have been the most impacted are artists. And certainly the IAC has paused some of our primary artist programs. So a way to be able to impact artists we felt would be great to do through this particular program in terms of prioritizing funding of applications that directly support the work of artists, either directly in the budget itself or in some resultant financial way. Say, for example, the project is about pulling an online gallery and then has a sales component to it. So it's a simple, but we hope impactful change in the program. And really, other than that, the only major change that we have in arts project support is not requiring the match this year. We recognize that the pandemic is kind of labile. It's up, it's down, it's getting better, it's getting worse. So we recognize that reality, and match is very difficult to collect when you don't really know what's going to be happening. So, but we really want to see arts projects happen in the state. We do know how valuable that they are, particularly to the morale of communities. And so really those are just the two small changes, but hopefully impactful changes that we made.
Okay. Any questions on the APS guidelines, minor revisions? Okay, so we're going to take those together as one action item for the purposes of the vote. Is there a motion for the adoption of the revisions for AOS levels 1, 2, and 3 and arts project support?
So move.
Thanks, Ruthann. Is there a second?
Dusty, second.
Thank you, Dusty. Is there any discussion, further discussion or questions?
Alan,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do the artists, the support for the artists, does that come in sort of a stipend, or is it material, or what is it? And do they get it once, or do they get it monthly, or how does that work?
You mean in the project budget? It would be whatever they have as a part of the design of the project. So let's say, for example, they're going to have an instructor to teach music to kids online. Okay. Then it would just be a stipend in the budget for how much that would be.
All right.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to know.
And to that point, Dusty, it could also be something that would support artists in other ways. So for instance, if it's an online art festival, the artist might not be receiving a stipend, but they have a sales opportunity. So it is another way of supporting them in a material way. So it could be either of those kind of strategies.
Okay, just wondered.
Yep, thank you, Dusty. Any other questions or comments in the discussion? Okay, Stephanie, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Thank you, Alan. Lisa?
Aye.
Alberta?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Walter?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
Kelsey?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
And Dusty?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to turn to special advocacy update. Sally and Terry.
Hey, Alan, I should just want to point out that I know Jamal has joined us and he's going to do a special report. We're running just a little behind.
Okay.
So just to make everyone cognizant of that. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
All right. Go ahead.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
So the Indiana Arts Advocates is a newly formed statewide arts advocacy organization. Our purpose is to promote public sector support for the arts because we understand the value the public sector support brings to the industry. I want to start by thanking the commissioners who have agreed to become part of our citizen leadership group. We call you the Citizen 12, and you include Alan Platt, Ruth Ann Cowling, and Dave Heist. A couple of former commissioners as well are Nancy Stewart and India Cruz Griffin. And on the legislative side, we also have 12 legislative leaders from both the Senate and the House. And one of those leaders and longtime arts advocate is Senator John Ford, former commissioner. So as a reminder, the leadership of the legislative side is in the Senate, and it's Senator Ron Grooms and Senator Tim Lannon. Since our last quarterly meeting, your last quarterly meeting, we have accomplished a couple of things, and one is to launch a website, yay. We are inartsadvocates.org. Please check us out and add your own name and email to our action alert mailing list. let's see, we also facilitated 3 sessions at the on advocacy at the Indiana Arts Homecoming, which were roaring successes. One of those was a breakout session with Senators Grooms and Lannon to talk about what is advocacy, how do people talk to their state legislators, and just to sort of make the process as easy and approachable as it really is. The full group of 24 met in the middle of November, right around the Legislative Organization Day. And I'm going to turn things over to Terry, my co-chair of the advocates, to talk about that.
Yes, good morning again to Chairman Platt and the other IAC commissioners. And we want to also say thank you for the opportunity to share with you today. In the essence of time, I'll be very brief. Yes, we did have a wonderful, encouraging meeting on November 18th. Again, thank you to those commissioners, IAC commissioners who were on that call. So we really appreciate that. Senator Grooms talked with us about the 2 divisions that are working together. And as Sally mentioned, that's the legislative it's a part of the legislative advisory group, the legislators and the citizens. And we realized that we work separately, but we also are working together, and we're showing a unified front. And the great thing about it is that they want to hear from us. They're encouraging us by telling us that we need to connect with them. So our number one purpose is to make sure that IAC and the organizations and the artists that they serve have the resources that they need to have in order to thrive. And we've heard that this morning in the meeting, and how Lewis and his staff have been working very hard to make sure that that happens. So the legislators are being very welcoming and open with us about including the Legislative Arts Advocacy Council in their discussions. Senator Grooms gave us an update of what they're doing and how hard they're working to get things organized. Senator Lannon talked about how the budget is going to be tough, so we need to strategize, and that's how you can help us. So the takeaways are for us, all of us, to stay visible and to stay vigilant. So we are going to contact our legislators, but we need you to help us to, we'll be crafting some messages, we'll be sending some things to you as IAC commissioners, as well as citizens, because we already know that you are supporting arts and culture. So you're going to be helping us by being a champion. So we'll be sending you some information. Sally, would you like to cover our Arts Advocacy Week efforts that we're working toward?
Yes, so in the past, there have been a number of individual in-person arts advocacy days at the State House. We will not be doing that in 2021. So we're thinking about working with advocates like you throughout the state to do an arts advocacy week. Although honestly, it doesn't matter when this happens during the upcoming session, as long as it happens. We want each of you to meet with your elected state officials to talk about how important the arts are to the recovery of Indiana's economy, and to how important we are for the solution for our social recovery throughout our communities. We know that because of the pandemic, these are unprecedented times. Arts organizations and artists are continuing to face instability. We are so grateful to the governor's office for the $10 million that honestly, we did not even ask for, that came from the CARES Act to fund arts and cultural organizations, more than 400 of them throughout the state. But we need to make sure that the Indiana Arts Commission's budget is at the top of the list for continued support from the legislature in the 2021 session.
Great. Any questions for Terry and Sally? Well, I certainly want to thank you all. I'm really excited to be part of the advocacy group as one of the citizens. And really want to thank you both for all your work and advocacy on behalf of the arts in Indiana. It means a lot, and it really is important, not just to our all arts and culture access, but to our economy. So thank you both so much for what you do. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your time.
Mhm. We're going to turn to the IEC information and publications. Bridget and Deanna.
Yeah, so we are working to support the advocates in any way that we can that is okay for state agencies to do. And part of that, as you know, we've been doing these Arts Trust license plate projects, taking an arts project support grant recipient from every county that has one, and making part of their grant monies that's interest from the top of sales of our license plate, both in an effort to retain license plates and to, again, like Sally and Terry had mentioned, continue that visibility that's so important. So we have been working on that. We're also working on developing our biennial report this year, which will be a little bit different. We're going to put a lot more focus on making sure each individual legislative district is communicated with personally. So normally we have a big old report about the whole entire state, and we're still going to do that, right? But moving into that number 3 bullet point legislative district profiles, we want to make sure that we're communicating directly with each legislator. That's something that Senator Grooms had mentioned would be beneficial, and we're taking that and running with it. The advocates have also reached out. Ruth Ann reached out last week asking for a quick impact stats sheet. And so we are working on that. Deanna pulled some stats, and I'm working with Senator Grooms's legislative aid to get that back out to the advocates. So we are all hands on deck, happy to support this effort. Deanna, go ahead and take it away for number 4.
Yeah, so you all have a handout. I'm going to briefly hit some of the high points. Back when the Arts, Culture, and Destination Marketing Organization support applications came in, we did a little meeting making takeaway, kind of based on what was submitted. So we had 528 applications that submitted. We recommended 479 for funding, ultimately had 477 that accepted. Of those, roughly 50% of them were current grantees of ours, so that was exciting. Of the money that's being granted out, 69% of the awards are going outside of the 4 major counties in Indiana, which is Allen, Hamilton, Lake, and Marion. So that's very exciting. For comparison's sake, looking at our FY19 regional initiative grants and arts operating support level 3, nearly half of all of our money went to those 4 specific counties. So to see that we're having a greater reach and impact outside of the metropolitan areas is very exciting. Of the applications that came in, roughly 75% are arts and culture organizations, specifically 501c3s. Others, as Lewis mentioned, fell into the festival category, or were a nonprofit, but arts and culture isn't their primary. So community centers, YMCAs, things of that nature. Let's see, of the arts and culture specific nonprofits, the IEC grantees made up only 60% of those folks. So we have 145 organizations that applied to this program that identify as arts and culture nonprofits that are new to us. With a little asterisk, most, I'd say a large majority of those fell more to the cultural side than the arts side. So those are organizations that are more likely to come in, say, for project support than for operating support for us, because if they're the zoos, aquariums, things of that nature, they wouldn't necessarily qualify for operating support under how we define an arts organization. But just a lot, as Lewis mentioned, a lot of new people uncovered to us through this program. Organizations could submit essentially a need request in 5 different categories of where they needed funds. Not surprising, salary support was the highest. This held true both when we looked at current IEC grantees and then just requests across the board that came in. The largest, when looking at size of the organizations, organizations that had budgets of 100,000 to 250,000 made up the largest chunk. In kind of a deeper dive, looking at organizations from 250,000 up to $1 million, were hardest hit in terms of the reported need in comparison to their overall budget. Let's see. When we look specifically at grantees of ours and CARE, because we had everyone report CARES money that they received, not just PPP, PPE, and the CARES funds that we gave out to organizations earlier in the year, they could self-identify any other sources that we didn't have listed. And so it was good to see that the organizations that are current IEC grantees were accessing funds outside of what they had already received from us. Overall, of all the applicants, roughly 34% had not received any form of CARES funding. So again, just kind of showing the barriers, but this was also kind of thinking back, the application was in August. So there's the potential that a lot of this could have changed. As Louis mentioned, we were able to fund 80 of the 92 counties, which is higher than our typical grant cycle. So that was also reassuring. And yeah, those are all the major points that we found in that initial takeaway.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I was just going to add to that yesterday in our agency head meeting, the governor's office led with our work on this as example of the kind of response the state has been giving and exemplary work from an agency. So just want to make sure that you know that it's very well recognized. I took that opportunity to make a pitch for future CARES monies that might come to the state, that we are ready and willing and able to do this again. I used this meeting making data that Deanna put together to show them how much was filled by, the need was filled and how much was unfilled. And that need will only grow in the new year when outside of the window that these funds apply to. So I made that pitch because they said, we did it better than anybody. Then I said, well, let us do it again then. So we'll see. In the proposed federal legislation, there is money for states that's unrestricted. There's also money potentially, at least in the version that's floating out there now, for live performance venues, because there's been a really good advocacy around that on a national level, especially. So that could be, again, something that we would fall pretty squarely into our world. So we might have a new different partner than tourism to do something like that. But anyhow, I just put it out there and, got the obligatory nods and smiles. So we'll see.
All right. I'll take the next one before I move on to executive leadership transition guiding group. I do want to just note that we're not going to take a break just for the purposes of time. So if you need to step away and then come back, please feel free to do so. I'll keep this short since we're running a little bit behind on the transition work. The small group, which will ultimately be rounded out to add a number of both some additional commissioners and stakeholders and a representative from the governor's office. We're in the process still of kind of finalizing or working toward a job description. We have, obviously, Louis has announced, and you've seen the press release, announced his retirement at the end of the coming year. So that's all in process. I've had a really good conversation with Rebecca Holwarda, and from the governor's, who is the governor's senior operations director, and we've gotten information about our approach, our desired approach, and they're taking a look at that to make sure it aligns. And so we're kind of on a bit of a pause on that while we get their feedback, which will be really helpful. And she's also going to be a part of the committee to work on this process. So I really appreciate her involvement. Just the timeline, a real rough timeline is kind of, we'll have most of those pieces worked out in January, February. We'll be coming to you in the March meeting for approval, but before that you'll get access, obviously, or have input into the job description. We'll come to you for final approval then in March of our proposed search, and then we'll start in earnest thereafter. And hopefully we'll have a submitted preferred candidate and a commission approved candidate by the September meeting. So a lot ahead. So just stay tuned for that. Let's see. We'll now move to, where are we? Special planning spotlight, and Jamal has joined us. So Louis, do you have any introductory comments there for this?
Jamal Smith, who a lot of you know, and has been involved with the commission for some time. He was head of the Civil Rights Commission for the state, also was in the governor's office for part of his career in state government. He is with IU Health now, and Jamal conducted for, also his wife, Micah, was a commissioner for 8 or 9 years with us as well. But Jamal conducted 3 focus group sessions with communities of color around the state to help us understand where we do and do not intersect with their priorities, needs, and access. So Jamal is going to give us a report from his findings. So Jamal, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Louis. And usually people lead with Micah, right? So that's usually my my parachute is his wife. And so I thank you for leading with some of the stuff that I actually did for once. No, just kidding. Actually, Mike is an amazing way to enter. So I usually get a standing ovation there. Thank you guys for the time this morning. Understand that we're a little bit behind time, so I will try to be as succinct as I possibly can. I'm assuming that everyone received a copy of the final report and had a chance to at least glance at it. I won't obviously read the thing word by word. I will start out by saying that it was a pretty amazing opportunity to engage with some of the folks throughout the state in regards to their involvement and or connection with art. And, you know, just to give a little bit of context, what we did was we wanted to make sure that not only were we, you know, communities of colors were the focus, but we didn't necessarily want to inundate ourselves with folks who live, breathe art as a primary mode of employment, right? Or, you know, so, but have a diverse group of folks in terms of background and age and experience, and then connect them to the arts by way of what they did for a living or what they did in their free time. Interestingly enough, you know, a good chunk of them readily identified how either their work connected or was supported by art, or what they did in their spare time or for their families, etc. So they were all in and excited about engaging, and we had some pretty lively discussions. We carried the discussions through the lens of diversity and inclusion. And in fact, the backdrop for it was the commission's equity statement, which I think is very fitting and amazing. I've been around that world for a while, and that's one of the better scripted equity statements that I've seen. So kudos to the commission on in that regard. So as you guys know, we started and identified, at least for starters, the 3 spaces we would go: Northern Indiana, Central, Northern Indiana by way of kind of Lake County, and then the South Bend, Mishawaka area up north, and then Central Indiana by way of Marion County, so to speak, and then Southern Indiana. The focus there was Evansville. So we note you know, also up front that we understand that Indiana is a lot bigger than those 3 spaces or sites that we were able to visit. And you'll see in the recommendations that in the recommendation sections that one of the recommendations is to continue to have these listening sessions and you know, begin reaching out to other parts of the state, you know, to continuously garner input and expression, and also heading back to some of the ones that we've already visited, because times change, communities evolve, etc. Uh-oh, I'm freezing a little bit here. Okay. All I want to start out by pulling out what came out as some of the common themes in the sessions. And most of this may not come as necessarily a shock, but it was, one of the benefits I think to having the sessions was allowing community members the opportunity to expound on why they felt these things were common themes and relevant to the work done, within the context of art. So, for example, access was probably the umbrella thing that came across in all three sessions, and that manifested itself in a number of ways, and typically, and probably most importantly, was access to resources or capital, which ironically transcends this conversation about art. But typically, for example, if you're talking to entrepreneurs, particularly entrepreneurs of color, they'll tell you one of the biggest hurdles or barriers is access to capital and their opportunity to fund businesses and projects that they're looking and seeking to work on. But it went further than that, right? Access was, we had some pretty heated discussion about just access to art programming and the lack thereof, in particular for young people. And we had some strong discussions around the schools and school systems and how art and extracurricular activities seem to be the thing that is being extracted from those spaces most frequently, and how that then creates this disparity or doubles down on the inequity that exists there. And we had one person, I mentioned this to Lois when we spoke, that she had an interesting spin on it and talked about how, art, whether in written or written form or music or what have you, is cultural for people of color. Like, it's just not something we engage in, just not something we do, and it creates benefit, but it's a part of the fabric of the culture and the cadence of how we move, live, work, and play. And the opportunity and the ability for young people of color to express themselves in that space continues to nurture that culture, continues to nurture that fabric. And so by removing that access away, removing the opportunity to do that in a way that structures that expression, kind of lends itself to some destructive expressions by way of art and music, and how some of that expression has been destructive to Black and Brown communities. And I thought that was an interesting spin. It was one that I hadn't heard before. And that was one that I took away as a really good food for thought in that space. Another common theme kind of connected to access was the need for capital. Capital and resource, so capital, obviously financing, but capital also manifests itself by way of kind of network resource and social capital, if you will. Tons of conversation around, it's the age-old adage, right? It's not who, what you know, but who you know that matters. It was some of that, and that, unfortunately, there are bodies of communities of color who are engaged in art who don't necessarily have the social network to connect to, the Arts Commission and or government or bodies of government that can provide, the financial resource needed. So in fact, 2 of the 3 meetings they started out, we had some folks thanking us. They weren't even fully aware of how or why the conversation was being had, but they knew that a part of this was connected to the state's Arts Commission and the idea that they would have the opportunity to some degree to form that relationship or make that connection was a big deal to them. And so they were extremely appreciative of that. So that was also a reoccurring theme. Kind of falling along with that theme was this notion of social and professional network again, and how critically important it is to establish said network is important, and it went both ways. It's interestingly enough, there was this part of the discussions, all 3 in fact, which spoke on not having that connection to some of the higher powers, if you will, right? The government agencies, the corporate funding, or those connections. But there was also this challenge, in particular in 2 of the 3 listening sessions, amongst the internal, to say, hey, it's important that we begin to expand ourselves and reach out and intentionally engage in spaces and places where either we haven't traditionally been welcome, which is a frightening sight or thought, or accept some of the kind of anecdotal invitations to engage, to begin to establish those networks outside of the communities that that we come from. So that was a big piece. Cultural connection was another theme that popped up and was referenced during the listening sessions through multiple examples of experiences and events unique to the each respective community. There was in Southern Indiana in particular, in that Evansville listening session, we had a good representation of some of our Latino brothers and sisters who spoke about in particular some of the experiential events that they have there, and the inability to access more than that remote community to engage in those events and support those events, but wanting to make sure that it extended beyond Evansville or even that specific neighborhood community where it existed, and be able to pull folks into to support by way of attendance, as well as perhaps maybe financial support as well. As I noted here, the participants expressed the importance of supporting such events as they serve as the accumulative voice of that community, which was kind of this reoccurring mantra, right? We are the voice, and we need to be able to sustain that cultural connection, and that it was often amplified through these events, and they became an entry point for others to engage, right? So in other words, if you don't have by nature the social network into that community, engaging in some of the events in this and some of those experiences creates an opportunity for you to establish that network. And then communication support. It manifested the need for communication support manifested itself in a few different variations. There was this in Southern Indiana in particular, there was this comment, repeated comment about how many things were happening, but almost in a vacuum, and that it would be nice if there was some uniformed way to be able to disseminate the information, the who, what, whens, wheres, and whys, and what it means to that respective community, and inviting folks that they knew that these experiences and these events, or these opportunities, or these grants, or these funding engagement pieces, or board opportunities, or employment opportunities within the arts were actually happening. And one of the ways that it kind of popped up or came through in conversation was, I recall 2 people in particular mentioned how, by nature, art is not what they engage in on an everyday basis. We had, as I mentioned earlier, we had a variety of folks who represented faith-based organizations, so clergy and priests. We had, some veterans on there who were retired and, former veterans. We had social workers and healthcare providers. We had educators. We had, one guy was a fireman. We had, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. We had just community center employees and program directors for community centers and all. And through those conversations, they say, hey, we understand how important art is to the communities we serve. There's no uniform way for us to have access to what's happening, whether it's an event or an employment opportunity or a grant opportunity or a board position, et cetera. And the desire to, because they don't live in it, the desire to have something where they could go to seemed to be a reoccurring thing, as well. So some really, really good discussions around that piece. There was also, as I mentioned earlier, this it got real heavy when we started to talk about school-based art programs and what they felt was this continued funding of these art programs. And as I mentioned before, like, you know, we would have there'd be some debate back and forth, you know, because everybody in the group didn't always agree on what was being tossed out, which I thought was very healthy. But there was one space where everybody kind of came together and the conversation always got kind of heavy is the only word that I can think of. And it was around young people and this notion that school-based art programs are being continuously defunded. And that, you know, when outside organizations, nonprofits and the like, you know, come up and raise money to fund the arts, their concern was it never truly makes it into the heart of the inner city. And if it does, it's never done through the lens of the folks in the community or the lens of the culture, right? So it's like, here's what art looks like and here's how you should engage. But it wasn't, let's nurture, you know, the culture and the way that you attach to art, right? So that was a, you know, I wanted to make note of that was one where, you know, that was like this guiding post, if you would. It brought everybody together and their sentiment for it may have been different, but they all kind of collectively agreed that this continued defunding of art school programs was an issue, and then further exacerbated by attempts to help supplement it, but doing so in what they considered to be kind of an inauthentic way. Another theme was the arts contribution to population retention. And what they meant by this, it was some of my folks who were a little more connected to, you know, to city politics and government, and they would reference how when corporations or companies are looking to recruit, art and culture is something that is used to recruit or retain, as companies are looking to retain some of their most valued employees. And that, you know, if that's the case, then we need to reconsider our funding models for how we pour into, you know, art exhibition, opportunities within the art and the diversity of art, especially of populations. If we're looking to diversify our populations, then art and the diversity therein becomes an important notion as well. And then one of the last ones that I noted here was intentional engagement as an opportunity to address equity and inclusion. It was this notion, and it kind of falls within the recommendation of not just throwing it out and say, hey, here's a resource available to folks who are engaged in art, but being intentional about making sure that those opportunities make it to some of the more underrepresented or what I call underinvested communities and neighborhoods. And typically, in line with what we've been doing with, excuse me, what we were doing with the listening sessions, were, you know, intentionally going into the spaces and engaging. Of course, I say going in relative because COVID kind of pushes us to this virtual space. But the point is, like, intentionally engaging with folks, not just of color, but folks who may not traditionally be considered in the arts world. And that's why I said in the beginning, we got there were some folks who really appreciated us reaching out because, you know, one, they understood the need for the connection, but we're saying because they don't traditionally live in the arts world, you know, these opportunities don't come to them very often. So they were really, really appreciative of this popping up. And so moving into some of the recommendations as a result of the listening sessions, and I'll go through these fairly quickly. I won't read word by word, but one, create independent art education programs to offset the lack of resources in public school settings. This goes to the this notion of the notion of defunded public school programs. You know, kind of diving into this a little bit, really doubling down on so that the notion here was, so you're not dependent solely on, let's say, general fund dollars, if you will, but these independent art funding programs. Now, the idea though is that when one would engage, whether that's an individual person looking to help fund or sponsor, or a company or corporation, nonprofit, what have you, that they do so in partnership with, right, or through the lens of that respective community, so that, you know, the way that art is then being either exposed, exhibited, or taught is with consideration for that culture, for that community, for that neighborhood. The next one was continue to expand and diversify the commission's social network. So one of the things that we hope comes out of these listening sessions, and it's kind of in reverse to what we're also telling the participants is, hey, we're hoping to be able to connect you to the wonderful people at the Arts Commission, and hopefully then that expands to other folks within state government who have knowledge or resource, et cetera, so that they, the participants in the session, would have the opportunity to expand their social network. But in reverse, it's, we hope, an opportunity for the commission and the wonderful people who do the work, the board member, the staff, to be able to expand their social network as well. And so that's one of the reasons within the report we wanted to be able to include the background, bios, and contact information for everyone who was participating. Remain intentional and targeted with engagement. And that was one of the common themes, and we felt that that was an important one. And so as things roll out, whether it be grant opportunities or events, or even as you're looking to promote, being intentional about how you engage in the communities, to make sure that happens. I wrote it here: cultivating meaningful relationships with community stakeholders can mitigate the inherent distrust present in most communities of color. One of the things, it wasn't a huge thing, which is why I didn't mention it, but one of the things that popped up in particular in Northern Indiana was that notion of distrust. That when the mention of government, hey, someone from the government is coming in, even if it's the Arts Commission, because it's the state's Arts Commission, it's not always, there's always like this eye, like, okay, so what do they want? Are they trying to extort something? Are they trying to, like, what is it? And what are they trying to take away from the community? Especially for those who aren't readily, engaged in art and don't really understand the connection between the Arts Commission and what you guys are working to do. Facilitate forums to encourage collaboration amongst community leaders and organizations. This kind of goes to that communications theme that popped up, and just the notion that as you move throughout the state, whether it be virtually or in person or through communication, that there's a way to link, because there's tons. The other thing that was we were made aware of is just how many things were happening, how many events, how many sessions, whether some kind of sometimes small I'll call them mom and pop events or exhibitions that were happening, but there's a lot of that going on. So there's a way to encourage that collaboration would be key, because a lot of the same things that were popping up in Northern Indiana and Mishawaka and South Bend are some of the same things that are happening in Evansville. And so being able to connect those two worlds, we think would be beneficial. Engage prior to implementation. This notion of we're doing it with and not to you was a big deal. Continuing the listening sessions. We think this work should continue. Like I said, as I was kicking the discussion off, was to engage other parts and other communities of the state and get a feel for what's happening. There's some similarities, but there's also some very unique elements of community culture that should be highlighted and should be represented and supported. And the ability to do that through art, I think, is an amazing one. So the listening sessions allows the commission to tap into that, but it also allows that continued growth of social network, right? So we think that's a strong recommendation. And then along with that communication piece is if there's ever a way, because I know that platforms and communication newsletters and types of things exist, and this is someone way smarter than me would be able to figure out, maybe there's a social media platform, not named Facebook, that is specific to arts or something. I don't know what that is, but continuing, that was this theme that popped up about the ability to know where things were and when things were and why things were, in particular or specific to to Indiana and the arts community was an important one. So with that, I'll pause, kind of get a feel for some reaction from the commission, any thoughts, questions, or feedback. But again, thank you guys for allowing us to engage in this piece. We learned a lot as well, and we hope that the information that comes out of the listening sessions and the report helps guide some of what the commission is looking to do in the future as well.
Jamal, this is Dusty, Dusty Stemmer. I was wondering if when you have your next listening session in Northwest Indiana, if I could just shadow in and just keep my mouth shut and listen. I'm very interested in the Gary area as far as their need for access and arts program. I think with the new mayor, things might be changing. So I'd really like to listen in.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we actually went back and forth about whether to include the commission. We opted not to, at least in this first round, primarily because we didn't want folks to feel filtered in their commentary. I will say though that with the people who participated, they were pretty bold in their commentary. So I'm not sure having the commission would have filtered that at all. But that was something that we were conscious about, right? When we entered it, we didn't want folks to feel, oh, there's this looming presence. So we, if there was, a strong sentiment about something, we'll keep it to ourselves, so as to not, ruffle any feathers. But that's something we should definitely talk through and consider. Not, and I would love to have your input just as when we do go back to figure out the best way to engage, because there is a lot of change happening in the Gary area in Northwest Indiana. I would love to your take on that.
I don't want to demean Libby or I, but I hardly think we're an imposing presence that they wouldn't be able to discuss their needs and their whatever's bothering them and what they need. But I mean, we can be like little mouses in the corner, little mice in the corner.
Yeah, no, I think you might be right. I think it was great. I was just kind of explaining our thought process and the views behind that piece. But again, once we dove into it, I didn't get the sense that anyone would be able to, because you had the groups tended to be not only diverse in background, but diverse in just kind of personality too. So you had the folks who weren't necessarily as boisterous, and they would give some commentary, a little. And then you had some who I actually had to mute a couple of times, like, because they were like just all in on the meeting, right, and just consuming the air and the deal. But no one seemed to be. I didn't get the impression that anyone would have been unwilling to offer their thoughts had someone from the commission been there. So perhaps you're right, and that's something that we should definitely talk through as we prepare to go back, for sure.
Any other? Oh, go ahead, Libby.
I second what Dusty said, because as I was listening, the one thing that keeps coming back is connection to social network. And that really can't be achieved by paper communication. And so if we were somehow to talk it through, as you said, Jamal, about connection, I hope that my intent is that it will give them a convincing evidence that we do listen to the recommendation and we will act on it. And in social network, it really has to be one by one person at a time. And so with Dusty's idea, I can't express it, but I just feel that the social network access, it's actually critical. As I said, even more than paper communication.
Absolutely, I agree with that. In fact, again, there was the idea that there would be the opportunity to connect to the commission was, that was a reoccurring thank you, right? So again, I think, when we look to go back, the notion of having you guys, anyone who has a connection to whichever respective community we go to, maybe something we should strongly consider, because from that experience, in addition to being able to offer your input, folks were really, really looking forward to the opportunity to connect to someone from the commission.
Mhm.
So I'm with you guys for sure.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you for those comments. And Jamal, thanks for the, oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, this is Lisa. Just a couple of things, Jamal. First, the qualitative research is just exemplary, and so thank you for sharing the findings. And I think just knowing the nature of research, that at least on this first round, not having us involved also could be an asset in terms of just affecting the nature of the input. Now that we know that, perhaps there's an opportunity moving forward, but I think that was a good call on this first round, and the next round should be really interesting too. I had two questions. One, just your comment on the effect in terms of corporate stakeholders, and I wonder if there's any opportunity to share some of the relevant findings of this research with key corporate stakeholders, just because I think this, this research is really valuable. Maybe that's a question moving forward. And then I'm newer, right? So I'm just wondering if there's one thing as a commissioner that I could do to take a practical step in just taking action on what we're hearing. What would that look like potentially?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa, for that commentary. So ironically, that notion of intentional engagement, especially from the corporate standpoint, is some similar. The work I'm doing with IU Health is in that vein, right? And so we, talking to the health system, and it's not just. I don't think it's industry specific. It's this notion that regardless of what your status is in terms of your corporate entity and how much money and resource you have, or how well intended you are, there's the potential for a great misstep if the way you engage is more done to and not with the communities that you're looking to do. And so, having, before you insert or implement anything, spending some time inside the neighborhoods and communities that you're looking to engage, and make sure that you're not off beat. At IU Health, we're talking about, there was this notion, food scarcity popped up. I'll give you a really quick anecdote. Food scarcity popped up as a social impediment, and one that everyone's looking to address. We've got food deserts throughout the city, right? So how do we engage in this piece? It's impacting the hospital's bottom line and people's health, right? So it was like, great. The first conversations were, let's find a box grocer, bring in a Kroger or a Meijer and just put that in the middle of the community, right? And so right around the time, I came in, I'm like, hey, pump the brakes a little bit and let's go talk to people. And interestingly enough, the overwhelming response from people in the community as we went around was, we don't want a box grocery store. Oftentimes, there's a lot of stuff we can't afford, and it doesn't seem to speak to our language culturally. The stuff that we like to cook and fix and stuff, and they don't have it. Or there was a whole lot of excuses why, but that wasn't the solution for everyone. So we had to back off of that and say, okay, so what else then? As you talk to the community, how else do you see us solving this issue? And they were candid about what they saw. And so then you can take it back, you digest that information, and you figure out what your best plan of action is. And so, I do think that having that conversation through the corporate lens is important, not just for the Arts Commission, but I think across the board. And so, speaking specifically to you, Lisa, and whatever your lane or whatever your network is, from a professional, even a personal standpoint, I think taking that same approach is a great practical step to take.
Okay. Hey, Jamal,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for really an amazing summary of that work, and really appreciate your efforts on that. I mean, for us to be able to kind of hear and connect and then understand is a big piece initially, and thank you for sharing that. We are going to move on. As we move on, though, remember that this is going to be an ongoing discussion, and so keep track of your thoughts and comments and share those with Lewis or me, and we'll share them with Jamal and back and forth, because this is a piece that I think is going to make a big difference for how we and to who we are able to deliver what we do. So again, thanks, Jamal, and give our regards to Micah and hope you all have a great holidays. Lewis, you want to go ahead and cover the next piece on the Development and Cultural Equity Advisory Council?
Sure, I've sort of already, kind of framed that. Am I on mute? No, I'm not. Kind of framed that up that, we've got this really great opportunity with the state's new Chief Inclusion and Opportunity Officer coming in here in February. And I hope that this is our work that we've done to set the stage for this, and to also have sort of an initial plan about a council and how that might advise and come into our processes and policies, et cetera. I'm hoping that this is also, the new officer not only supports us, but we can support their work as well. I think we're probably way on the front end of a curve to most agencies in the state, right? In that we have had at least initial conversations. We've adopted a cultural equity, statement as a part of our value package, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm hoping that, we represent something that also she can catalyze around as she kind of conceives of the whole state and the way it approaches these communities of color and serving them more appropriately and more robustly and more inclusively. So I'm really kind of excited about it from that standpoint. And so, our next step is to engage that officer, to show her the work that we've done, to roll out sort of a initial thought about how we get more continual input into this for our programs and services, and how that informs the umbrella work that she's going to do, and how that umbrella work informs this as well. So I give a lot of kudos to our governor for taking a big step, and we're going to be part of it and supportive of it, and we're also going to be drivers in it, I think, not only for ourselves, but for the whole state. So I think that's awesome. I do want to, I think Jamal is spot on that, these are not one-time conversations, and, there are other communities, important communities of color throughout the state that obviously we haven't talked with. And there's also some, I think, shared issues with rural Indiana in some of this, and communities in rural Indiana, and how they may not have been included in the mainstream of what we do. And also are dealing with diverse populations that are very different. So I think there's just a lot of work to be done, but this is a great step forward. I wanted to make sure that we recognize Channy Jones, who also worked with Jamal on this for all these sessions.
Thank you, Louis. So sorry for that.
No problem. Channy has, helped not only summarize a lot of this, but also add a lot of wisdom to the process. So grateful to Channy. Channy is
my student.
A student of Libby's with Goucher College. Arts and
absolutely.
So anyhow, just wanted to make sure we recognize Channy as well.
She did great work and offered a lot of context, and she kept me on target. I tell you that much. Channy was great. Thanks for that reminder, Louis, and I sincerely apologize publicly to Channy for not saying that up front.
And also, as we think of even new programs that might be developed, or the future of existing programs, something like PACE, which is a program that partners artists and organizations in a community setting with a school, to bring that to a school that ended up being a very big piece of what Jamal's takeaways were, and what the next iteration and the next generation of that program might look like, that specifically addresses some of these things, is exciting, because some of this will be brand new work for us. Some of this will be adapting things that we do, things that we have done that we have just not included the communities in an intentional way in. So I just think it's great work, and thank you, Jamal, and You know, I'm hoping that Jamal continues to be involved with us as well. So thanks so much.
Okay. Hey, Chad, would you give us a quick update on the values exploration?
Sure. We're. I think that everybody is aware that we that Karen, and I know she's on listening in on the call. Started to go through the process of having some sessions. We did 2 sessions with the staff and 1 session with the commission. That got paused, and I'll let Alan kind of explore why that was. We are going to plan to restart that, not restart it, but continue on in January once we're kind of sort of had our alignment issue taking place with the governor's office, and then we will come back in anticipation to come back and culminate that in the March session. So I think that's the update. We do not have dates for January. We'll get those out to the commissioners as soon as possible.
Yeah, and that's you mentioned it, and I kind of mentioned it or previewed it earlier. But once the governor, you know, what they want to be able to make sure that our process aligns with their kind of their goals, and also with the new position of the Chief Equity Inclusion Opportunity Officer. We also want that piece to kind of be involved. So anyway, we're shared information with the governor's office about where we are on these, and then we'll kind of move that forward in the new year. So I think that's it on that piece. Let's see, we're on to regional partner update. Larry.
Yes, well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'll be quick because I know we're running late. So let's just say the partners are meeting bi-monthly, meeting virtually, which has been great. Communications are more robust. Some new partners are probably suffering a little bit because we don't meet in person, so we don't have much. We're not putting much camaraderie with those new partners. But I want to thank Chairman Platt and the commissioners for helping the staff be so responsive to COVID. And the reason I say that is because in regards to Libby's comments and what Jamal was saying there, the partners are your regional boots on the ground, and we are the people that can really help with the intentional social networking. We are, because of all these actions, I'm speaking personally, but I imagine for all partners, we're working a whole lot harder. We're getting a lot more phone calls. We have a lot of desperate artists out there that are really looking to us for leadership and funding and just good advice. There's a lot of great things, webinars and different things that the staff are doing that we're able to share. And I think it's been a great benefit. So just to conclude, I think the regional arts partners circle of influence has increased tremendously because of the actions of the commissioners and the staff. And as we come out of this, these difficult times, I think we're going to be positioned to really help the IAC expand its influence in the state, and hopefully work with Indiana arts advocates and get more money, because we're going to need more money to make those things happen. So I just want to say thanks again for all your work and for allowing us to be part of that success.
Thanks, Larry. Do anybody have any questions for Larry? I will say I sure appreciate you sharing that the reach has really grown, and sometimes we don't think about the effects of COVID, but I'm glad those that sometimes might end up being positives, but I'm certainly glad to hear those connections are being made. And thank you and the regional partners for all your work that you always do, and especially in this time. Very much appreciated. Okay, Committee on the Future and Program Grants and Services Committee. Let's see. Wow, we got I guess Ruth Ann or Lewis, whoever wants to jump off there. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, some of these items under here, in the context of going over, we've gone over the update on the ACDMO grantees, update on FY 2021 grantees. So I think we can maybe sort through some of that to make this a little more compact, but we have some action items too. So I'm gonna turn this over to Anna, because we have 2 guideline changes that would need commission action. So Anna. I think you are muted, Anna.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Okay, first up, the Spotlight Community Approval. So 9 communities are currently using the Creative Community Pathway, which is our roadmap for any Indiana community to start, focus, or deepen arts and culture-based strategies to grow community well-being. So each of the 9 communities that have submitted an LOI to us, to the Creative Community Pathway, have received some pretty intense feedback over the past couple of months from a statewide support team. So you can see those 9 communities, I believe, on your handout. 4 of those communities were found by that support team to have exemplified especially strong arts and cultural identity and leadership, and they are integrating arts and culture into their community and economic development plans. And so today, we're seeking your approval of the recommendations from the support team to recognize 4 Spotlight communities, which are Fort Wayne, Goshen, Kokomo, and Wabash. These 4 communities will be invited to apply for Indiana Cultural District designation. So congratulations to all 4 of those for all the hard work they've put in. But before I pause to decide how you guys want to move forward, do you have any questions for me about this process or these communities?
Yeah, this just maybe my memory. Have any of these communities received this kind of a designation prior, or is
these 4
is the new program
communities? This is the inaugural Spotlight Community Recognition.
That's what I was afraid I had lost that piece. Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of them have done this work for a long time, but this is the first time we've been able to honor them like this. Any other questions? Thank you, Lori.
Anna, were there any communities that started the process that fell off and didn't take advantage, or were these the 4 that kind of stayed through from beginning to end?
Sure. So on your handout, there are 9 different communities listed that really put a ton of work into the Creative Community Pathway and the letter of intent process. And all nine of them put in, all of the work and are all still committed really to this work, whether they are receiving Spotlight Community recognition or not. We've been having some great conversations about how exactly each of those communities might move forward to pull together that intentional plan, resources, community support to really integrate arts and culture into their daily community life. And so all 9 of them, I would say, are still very committed. 4 of them have really stood out in that process and are recommended for this special recognition by the support team. Is that what you meant? Did I answer your question?
That's exactly what I meant. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Alan or Ruth Ann, would you like to make an action now, or do you want to do them together with the cultural district guidelines?
I think we probably ought to, this because the cultural district is the guideline. This is approval of the Spotlight communities.
Yep.
I think we probably ought to do these separately. So is there a motion to approve the Spotlight community, the 4 communities indicated?
This is
Lori,
Chad.
so moved.
Okay, Lori had a motion. Chad, will you second that?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chad. Any discussion? Okay, go ahead, Stephanie, take a roll call, please.
Thank you, Alan. Lisa?
Aye.
Alberta?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Walter, Lori,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Sophia.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you.
And then Anna, you're going to do the cultural district guidelines as well.
Yep. Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Bridget also dropped in the chat that we're going to be really making a big celebration of all of this here later this afternoon. So keep your eyes peeled, and be sure to reach out to, if you're from these communities, let me know. I can put you in contact with the folks who have been working so hard on it. So thank you so much. Okay, next we are seeking your approval of these funding guidelines, the cultural district funding guidelines. And each year, designated Indiana cultural districts may request funding for a project that helps them reach their long-term cultural district plan goals, as well as supports the work of the Indiana Cultural District Consortium. They have together, all 10 cultural districts, put together a collaborative work plan because they believe that when they collaborate, the whole state benefits. It's pretty amazing. So those funding guidelines are for up to $4,000 for a project for this next year. These guidelines are the same as they've been in the past 2 years, although the maximum request has been reduced because of the budget cuts.
Okay.
Any questions about what's in these guidelines?
Yeah. Any questions there? So just the slight change really to the guidelines from the previous ones. Is there a motion to approve the cultural district guidelines?
Jake, so moved.
Thanks, Jake. Is there a second?
Second.
And second.
Okay. I heard Dave and I heard somebody else, so I'll take Dave as a second. Go ahead, Stephanie, let's have a roll call on that, please.
Thank you. Lisa,
Aye.
Alberta,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Libby,
Aye.
Ruth Ann,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Walter's gone. Lori,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
and Sophia.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna, the artist services update, please.
Great, yes. Okay, well, as you know, we have a very hefty strategic plan, and there are a couple of ways that two of our individual artist programs, that's the Individual Advancement Program and On-Ramp Creative Entrepreneur Accelerator. There's a few ways that they are helping accomplish the big ideas in that plan. So I just wanted to catch you up on what artists are doing through our programs these days. And then I have another fun thing to put in your minds at the end of this. So what we're seeing, really, the two major things that our artist programs are doing for our strategic plan is they are helping artists grow, and they are helping a range of residents to appreciate and participate in diverse creative activities. Specifically, we see that about half of IAP and on-ramp projects had significant participation from audiences or participants that were not white. So about half of all projects had really significant participation in at least racially diverse groups. We also saw that 98% of IAP grantees achieved their artistic goals with this grant, and 49% achieved their career goals with this grant. IAP and on-ramp grantees meaningfully engage with their communities. They are actively seeking out to listen from the folks who they interact with. They're hearing what they're saying to them, and they're making changes accordingly. I would love to give you lots more examples of that, but we do not have the time for it. So you know what? Shoot me an email. Let's talk about it later. We are also seeing that despite COVID-19 setbacks, both IAP grantees and on-ramp fellows have found ways to grow through this grant. Actually, several times, without even asking about it, we received stories about how grateful they were to have this funding during this time, and also that it was specifically dedicated to their artistic practice, and how they actually made significant advancement in their careers really in this moment. Also very proud to tell you that the 2019 on-ramp cohort, we did another evaluation this summer and found that they are actually more resilient in the pandemic compared to artists nationally. So here's a few examples of that. On-ramp taught them how to save for an emergency. They were more likely to have retained their savings, and they are actively managing their expenses. They're identifying new allies and partners, and they're adjusting their business plans. They said 83% of them said that they agreed or strongly agreed that on-ramp helped them cope with the pandemic. And also this group is more likely compared to their peers across the nation to continue really like the changes they're making now, they're probably going to incorporate into their practice long-term, like their virtual offerings. It's pretty exciting. So as this pandemic's unfolded, we've obviously really worked really hard to stay in direct communication with these artists and the people who work with artists. We've surveyed, we've hosted working groups for arts leaders to solve problems that we identify in those survey research projects. And one of the problems we've been working on together with a small group of arts leaders is the continued need for art entrepreneurship skills through the pandemic. So we're excited for probably the next time that we get together as a full commission in March. We're excited to bring you a program concept that allows us to equip artists and community leaders to host their own programs like on-ramp locally. So really looking to extend that opportunity and its benefits out to as many people as possible, potentially by equipping artists and community leaders to implement that themselves. So more to come on that, but despite all of the blows we've received this year, artists are figuring it out. They are still active and they're still committed to their work. So thank you for your support of artist programs.
Okay, thank you, Anna. If anybody has any questions, just for time purposes, if you would just send her an email, and I'm sure she's going to be happy to respond to those. And thanks, it's really good information, and the on-ramp positives and that group's experience during COVID is awesome to hear. I'm glad you shared that. Paige, you're up next for these next two. I think maybe some of this we've already shared, but anything to add?
I'm just going to be extremely brief. The information is in the packet, and just sort of floating from where Anna was talking. While we do see a strong hit in the arts organization stratosphere, of course, we do see a lot of resilience as well. I have to say that I'm a bit concerned about the performing arts entities because we have 60% of our 200 grantees are performance-based organizations, and as the pandemic worsens, so does the impact on those folks. But we do know the ACDMO funds have been critical in providing bridge. But we also see that there's a lot of investment in arts, particularly around social emotional learning, even with the Indiana Department of Education, which we're really proud to report. Stephanie Haynes has been doing great work with them and providing guidance from our perspective. Then the artists are really serving to help provide community resilience, and communities are looking to artists, I think, more than they have in the past to provide that resilience and for them to contribute to really kind of the morale of getting through these times together. So that's all I add, and any other detail you're more than welcome to find in the packet that you have.
Okay. Anything we need on the situational field assessment? Is that already?
I think she just sort of did that piece of it.
Okay. I didn't. There was because you're listed also. I didn't know if you had something additional.
No. Just again, the comments I've made about the need that's still in our sector that is ongoing here, and that is not going to abate without in the near future. Certainly with the situation as it is. So I think we could go to the homecoming and capacity building
Great
report.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in. You've got a handout about the impact of our annual arts conference for our new commissioners, which is called the Indiana Arts Homecoming. This year, it was a all virtual conference, and you'll see the top line takeaways from that. We were able to increase our access. 11 participants from 11 more counties were able to join us virtually. And we continue the trend of 2020 of meeting lots of new people or engaging with folks who haven't worked with us before. So those are all great outcomes. In thinking about FY21, the FY21 conference, which will be in October, the calendar year 21 conference, which will be in October. We are currently planning for an all virtual format, recognizing that the situation on the ground may allow us for some in-person components. We're just going to have to wait and see, but we're planning for what we know we can do now, which right now is a virtual conference. So as things on the ground change, we again may introduce some in-person components to it. We do plan to site the conference in Columbus, which is where this year's conference was supposed to be. And so whether or not we are all virtual or we have some in-person elements, the in-person components will be in Columbus. More details on that as things come together. Also, we will be, the Governor's Arts Awards obviously will be done in conjunction with that, and there'll be more information about what that will look like, I think, for you at the March meeting. So more to come there. Also, our focus, one of our focus areas, our prime focus areas for next year's conference is pathways to learning. So arts education in all its iterations will be a major focus of next year's conference. Just as a FYI, it dovetails nicely in what Jamal has been talking about related to the interest of talking more and emphasizing more on arts education. The timing is great. So again, more on that to come in March and certainly in June. So just FYI. Thanks.
Okay, you want to go ahead and jump to the cultural trust activity?
Sure. Yeah. So cultural trust. Yeah.
And Maya,
sorry.
can you mention about Nina Simon?
Yes. Thank you, Paige. So we are going to be doing some additional capacity building sessions. The Arts Homecoming is our sort of our anchor capacity building piece, but then we're going to be doing some additional capacity building early in the first quarter of calendar year 21. We will be hosting Nina Simon, and she'll be doing a session based on her book, The Art of Relevance, which is an amazing book that touches on obviously relevance for arts organizations and resiliency. And it's a great topic for a great time as arts organizations pivot and think about resilience and relevancy in this moment. We'll also be rolling out some additional capacity building later that will focus on organizational stability. We're also partnering with Indiana Philanthropy to help provide some opportunities to attend some sessions that they're doing related to organizational stability going forward. So Paige, anything I'm missing there?
Oh, just that we're partnering with Indiana Humanities to roll out the Art of Relevance. And it really does scaffold exactly from what Jamal is talking about of working with, not to, in a really accessible way. So very excited about it. And then we'll have a book club. I hope you all can join the book club. So more to come.
Yep, thanks. So cultural trust, very briefly for our new commissioners. Our cultural trust is funded through license plate sales. And so the Arts Trust license plates that you see fund the cultural trust. And this financial report shares obviously the balance of interest in the cultural trust and plate sales and so forth. For those of you that are new, the commission moved in June to begin to allocate funding from the cultural trust to help support arts project support. So Bridget spoke earlier about our Arts Trust license plate projects that you may be seeing email communications on from around the state. And the commission voted to allocate funds from the trust directly to support arts trust projects around the state, with the idea of, number one, letting folks see in up close and personal the impact of their license plate investment around the state. And then also, obviously, to provide some visibility for the plate itself. We have been decreasing sales over the last probably 10 years. And so by providing some additional visibility and helping trust license plate investors see what they're supporting directly, we hope that will help at least staunch the decrease that we've been seeing year over year and get some new folks interested. And so for you new commissioners, or even you current commissioners, if you're interested in a low trust license plate, we have some low number license plates that are available to you. So if you're interested in that, get in touch with Bridget about that. And just a little tip, if you want to add an air of intrigue to yourself, get a low number license plate, because having a 2010 gray Camry with a low number license plate really ramps up the intrigue. So again, if you want to support the trust and get a license plate, especially a low number one, get in touch with Bridget. She can help you with that. So I'm happy to answer any questions, any additional questions about the trust and the investments there.
And I think especially for the new commissioners, it's important to note that this trust was created by a piece of legislation.
Yep.
And it is an endowment. So by law, we or anyone else can't touch the principal in it. We can only draw on the available interest from it, which is listed on that report. In fact, the legislator who created this, Hurley Goodall, is one of our Governor's Arts Award winners for this upcoming year. So, and he is now this trust is about 20 some odd years old now, and so and Hurley is a little bit older than he was when he created it. So we're happy to be honoring him. So anyhow. Just wanted to let you know. So we have over time drawn on this for programs, and as Maya said, we're currently doing it for those project grants that are exemplary in the state. And we so anyhow, it is some permanent piece of funding on a very small level for us that exists, which is a great thing. So.
We're going to move on to communication update. Bridget, any highlights that we need to cover with the commissioners?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we're running low on time. I hope one day maybe we can spend more time on the work that the staff is doing, because it's really robust and interesting and exciting. And so with that, I want to say that in this last quarter, we celebrated Arts and Education Week, and Stephanie Haynes, per usual, she helped us out doing the accessibility highlight for the 30th anniversary of the ADA this summer. She stepped right up again for Arts and Education Week, and we got some stuff done. We partnered with Indiana Philanthropy Alliance to get the word out about PACE and the benefits of arts integration, worked with the Secretary of Talent Connection, and did a video collab with the Department of Education. And I mentioned that because while looking at our key performance indicators, the topic that we saw the most growth with, although we saw growth across the board, were subscriptions to our arts education topic. That grew the most at 18%, which says when we put time and effort into something, we see those results. And I'm really proud of that and excited for that collaboration between our communication staff and program staff. We're working on some key performance indicators for next year. Like Lewis said, that gets a little wonky with the way that that works with state personnel in the governor's office. But we are moving along. The one main opportunity that we saw for next year is we are really good about prepping communications and getting things out to the public when there's something to invite them to participate in, whether that's applying for a grant or participating in our Indiana Arts Homecoming. But something that we saw an opportunity for growth in, and something that Senator Groom certainly nudged us in the direction of, was being really diligent and intentional on prepping communications on the back end after we get a final grant report. What was that impact in a legislative district? What does that look like, and how are we communicating that out? So on the last page of this communications update, you'll see kind of what we're thinking about in terms of moving into 2021. And certainly our big celebration for the month of December and November was highlighting those cultural districts that are doing such great work, and also getting the word out about spotlight communities. Very excited about that. I dropped the media kit in the chat. I hope you'll share that with all your friends on social if you participate in that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know.
Hey, Alan, before we do old business and new business, I just wanted to recognize Rebecca Huerta has joined us, I see, from the governor's office. And just wanted to reiterate what I said at our Hey Rebecca, our agency meeting yesterday. Just really what a wonderful job the governor's office has done through a really difficult crisis situation here for that continues to go, and it doesn't let its foot off the pedal. You know, this virus is not doing that. And just how supportive they've been all year long, how hard they're working, how exhausted they are, I think, both mentally and physically, and how much I appreciate them as people. So I wanted to make sure that you guys extend your appreciation to them as well, because they've been exceptional, and we really appreciate them. So
absolutely,
give them a round of applause, man.
Yeah.
Our governor's office has been awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for being here too, Rebecca. Appreciate you joining in. And then we are on, I guess that is old business. Any old business anybody needs to bring before the commissioners? Hearing none. Any new business? Okay, also hearing none. Just want to thank everybody for being here. I know this was a lot of information and we've kept you a little longer than was scheduled without a break. So thanks for hanging in, and thank you to the staff for all the information and putting together the packets, which are always very helpful. Really gives us a lot of good insight in advance so we can keep track of what we're talking about. I also want to, again, thank and welcome Sophia, Kelsey, and Lisa to your first meeting, and thanks for being with us. We are all really excited to be able to have a chance to work with you, and are excited to get the chance when we're all back together in person to get together on a Thursday night like we typically do for meetings, and just you know, get the chance to talk and get to know each other more. So with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
This is Jake. I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you, Jake. Is there a second?
Lori, second.
Lori, thank you. Stephanie, would you take a roll call for that final adjournment motion?
Thank you, Alan. Lisa?
Aye.
Alberta? Chad?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Walter? Lori?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
Kelsey?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.